Hi, my name's Jerry Cabasudo from godislovetruthlife.com or godislovetruthfreedom.com because a life without freedom is not worth living. And today my friend Ann Lashbrook-Wright, who has a YouTube channel at Ann Lashbrook-Wright, as well as an Odyssey channel at Lashbrook with Mrs. Wright with Wright, which I will include in the show notes. Welcome, Anne.
Hey, Jerry, it looks like your video is a little delayed. I don't know if that's just on my end. But just in case, I mean, I'm fiber and with my Ethernet, so like the full connection, but it looks like it delayed a little bit. I don't know if that's going to show up in the recording or that's just how it's coming through.
I think yeah, we could just do post-production stuff on that. So
Awesome. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. 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 So yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm kind of fired up. I'm not fired up that the chemtrails are disturbing my eyes and I've got to look like this, but it's okay because our world is in peril and we need to know these things and we've got to take some right action. So I'm excited. I will do my best with my voice and my spirit to embody what my face doesn't in this moment.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit before we started recording about how you're really incorporating this idea of right action, not just philosophically, but physically. And I've viewed some of your work on your YouTube channel, but yeah, I would just love to learn more about how you're approaching right action physically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I know I talked a little bit about when we chatted, I guess it's about a year and a half ago, about the fact that I coach a swim team. I coach a summer swim league as well as I coach recreational gymnastics. And so I use the fact that I am physically in the water, physically in a gymnastic space with children to teach very simply the thing that I feel is not taught anywhere, which is right from wrong. And I get to have conversations with them literally every day about those things. And so I really would love to invite adults to take part. I talked about my background in our previous conversation, but for 20 years I taught what I called beyond movement. And so if you're familiar with Pilates or modern dance, kettlebells, strength training, all of that kind of work, that's what I did. And I was using metaphysical principles to embody those in that work. I was in the yoga world for a long time. I was in a variety of different modalities, but what I kept seeing is that people were so caught up in dogma. They were so caught up in really religion, right? It really was a religion, even though people would say, well, no, I don't practice Hinduism. I don't believe that Hanuman tore open his chest as he leaped from India to Sri Lanka, which is like a cool story from, Hanuman. So like if you side note, if you do the splits and you do a back bend, that's Hanuman asana. You are embodying the god Hanuman. And it's my understanding that we don't need gods, archons, lords, rulers, authority. So I couldn't be on board with that. I also don't want a guru. And I think the gurus have done a really good job of abusing people, to be quite frank. And many people can say, oh, well, I'm not practicing their yoga. My flow yoga is not Ashtanga. So the fact that Patabi Joyce laid his groin on people and literally like broke their bones, that's okay because that's not my yoga. And so for me, I was like, I'm not fucking calling it yoga because I don't want to be associated with that. Which is why, I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's also why I basically told adults, that I wasn't going to mess with them. But I know it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to do my best to make a difference, and I really want to reach out to people that are in our same shared community that understand Mark Passio's work, that understand natural law, first principles, creators principles, whatever you want to call them. Right? It's all the same truth. Feel free to use the words that speak true to you. Um, I kind of like creators principles personally because I don't like the word God. I know that God is in your marketing and your things, but I want to be really clear that it's that one generative force that I am doing my best to share, not Yahweh or I don't know, let's even Pan, right? Like a pagan god. I don't want to I want to be really clear on what I'm talking about. Even though, like I shared in my past, Christ was my path, but I was very clear that it's not the only path, right? And I
Absolutely.
love that you're calling what you're doing sound path because I think that sound and music and vibration is obviously like the pulse of all of these things, which is why I take my gymnast and we create seasonal shows. The one that we're working on right now is called Cowboys and Cowgirls, and we are using country music to teach very simple, again, right from wrong. It was absolutely wrong for people to, steal. Uh, I'm hoping I'm saying her name correctly. Mayatoka, that we know as Pocahontas, right? Do you know anything about Pocahontas? I'm just like on a rant right now, just so you know, but like I'm just going.
Oh no, yeah, no worries. I love where we're going. So, what I know of her is that it's more sort of mythological, folkloric, but that she was sort of taken from her people and she married one of the white settlers that but I don't know much beyond that.
Right. And I don't know, what I do know is that she's much younger than we tend to portray her. And if you read, which I have not read all of his writings, so I apologize for this because I don't really want to read John Smith's writings, but he goes into great deal about this naked child doing cartwheels, and it's like super gross. And again, I think that the most important thing is that consent. It doesn't appear that she gave her consent to what happened. And I don't get into that with the children. We just talk about like she was stolen and it's not the Disney movie. That's not what happened. And and yeah, so that's part of our story. I also let the because I'm kind of in this unschool camp, but I don't like to be labeled a radical unschooler. My child does go to bed at an appropriate hour. He doesn't have uninterrupted screen time. I understand um, that it is important for children to learn natural consequences, but I've actually interacted with adults that were unschooled, and they feel that they wish that more boundaries had been taught to them. So I feel that I can, again, I can kind of find that balance. That's the 6 planets in Libra for me, like we're balancing the scales. But with that unschool camp, I like things being child led. So I kind of had this loose theme because I knew what I wanted to impart, the right versus wrong. Um, but I wanted to let them create. So the children are like, we're lost and we're going to teleport from one land to another. And I'm like, okay, great. Like we're children lost in the wilderness. We're traveling down the river. We're hitchhiking. We're getting in boxcars. I'm like, great. Like this sounds awesome. So picking the songs that they wanted to perform to, also the ones I learned a couple years ago, these kids love to sing, which of course, why would you not? And so what do they want to sing? What do they want to dance to? What do they want to do their gymnastics to? What instrumentals could tell the story? and we've been talking a lot over the last year about the overture, the music that lays the foundation at the beginning of a production. So, how do we put into the overture? Um, but also in these productions, because I want to be able to talk to adults about these conversations. So, the piece, and I just shared this in a video I created yesterday to kind of promote the show. Um, chemtrails. So, anyway, just so you know, people believe that like they stopped spraying in Tennessee. That's not true. That's not true. You just are believing that from your Facebook propaganda. No, they say there is still all over. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I talked about Dominique Moussaino's 1996 Olympic routine called "The Devil Went Down to Georgia." And I just referenced it. I showed it to the children. I said, no longer do 14-year-olds get to compete in elite gymnastics. But if you look up Dominique and look up her story, and if you're fortunate enough to know that she's coaching or coaching children and doing wonderful things, um, she was a victim of Larry Nasser, I'm pretty sure. Her parents stole her money, is my understanding. And I think she was kind of a ritual, right? Because they did the Atlanta bombing. She is performing as a 14-year-old. The devil went down to Georgia. I think she was performing on a stress fracture. Like it's bad. But I mean, she was beautiful. It's so beautiful. But I've been asking myself lately when I say that, I talk about this beautiful 14-year-old child. Does that mean I'm feeding into it, Jerry? Does that mean me, myself, I'm watching and observing her? Am I part of the problem?
Oof.
Right? Right? The
Heavy.
same with anything. Like if we're, you know, you're probably a little young, but like the Olsen twins, it's like I used to think they were the cutest things ever, or Shirley Temple, if we want to go further back, or if we want to. Last year, our thing was about orphans, and we talked about the orphan trains and all kinds of things. But P.T. Barnum had a very young child, Tom Thumb, that he paraded around. He was like 6 years old, and he did have dwarfism, but like I'm sure we can go even further back to child performers. And so those are the conversations I want to have with adults, right? The children, I'm just planting these seeds. And one of my gymnasts the other day, I shared this in an after class for how to become the true media, that one of the girls, we were reading, oh, I thought I had them close by. It doesn't matter. We were reading Big Brother, uh, Big Brother's. Wait. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. Brother Eagle, Sister Sky. Thank you. I was like, my brain. And we were discerning who was right and wrong. And one of the girls straight up goes, "The government." And I was like, yes. And then this week, she decided that she was going to do her school project on the Cheyenne people, because we have another book that we're going through about the government schools, the boarding schools that they took them to. And so, again, these are some heavy topics for children ages 4 to 12, but we're going there to the best of our ability. And now, because I kind of empowered this young girl on, I think it was on, I don't know, one of our last rehearsals. I want to say it was Tuesday, but I think maybe it was on Saturday. She like got a little more powerful of like, we're against you, the government did it. And I was like, yay,
Awesome.
So, I mean, I know I'm leading them, but again, like I said, I walk this line of like child led, and I'm the adult, so I am there to teach. So,
Well, and I think what you're describing is sort of, yeah, just balancing of, yeah, like you said, allowing that sovereignty of the child, but then you're guiding them. You're not, I've been trying to rework this idea of teaching as guidance. You're
yes.
showing the way, but they're doing the work. And I love how you're incorporating storytelling, dance, music, movement to teach these concepts and ideas. And I love that you're not only working with children but also their parents. I think that's a huge piece. I would love to learn more about, yeah, just because I was having this conversation with some folks in our community, like, even if you're, let's say, doing some sort of like homeschooling, unschooling co-op situation, if the kids are going back home to a family that's not aligned, a lot of the sort of experiences and teachings may go out the window. So it's so important that we get that parent buy-in in terms of understanding these concepts. So yeah, I would love to learn more about how you're bridging those gaps for the parents.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in the conversations. When you were talking, it was reminding me, um, I went and straight up told the parents of this child, I said, okay, this is what she came out with. I said, I'm going to be honest. I'm believing that she's right, but I just want you to know, like, this is the conversation that we're having, and you all can have that conversation. Um, and, um, so that was how I approached that specific situation. But while you were talking, I was thinking when you were talking about homeschool co-ops and different people that we interact with. Last week, I took Carter to a fencing workshop. It was so cool. It was so cool. And there was a mom that she and I were talking about our neurodivergent children and kind of sharing some similarities between our boys. And then we got to talking, and she was like, she is a professional swimmer. She competed on a really elite level. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, I stopped swimming at 14. I was like super burnt out. I had like an old school coach. He still coaches. He's still coaching now, which works for some people. And in the world of swimming, the old school coaching is like yardage, 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 and that's what this athlete was saying. She's like, yeah, it's like 75,000 just in a practice. She's like, I was already
Wow.
getting rehab on my shoulder at 12. I said, so was one of the other athletes that I worked with at a club. And so we were talking about like different approaches, but we were also talking about that we can't find people that are very clear on right and wrong. And it was so perfect, Jerry. The kids go outside to have their little break, and they all consent to a stick battle, right? They all consent to the stick battle. And then somebody steals Carter's jacket. And side note, Carter likes to wear bright lime green, and he knows that for many years I've had to clean the bright green of red clay dirt and barbecue sauce or whatever is on it, right? All the things. And so he ask for it back. They don't give it back. I don't see all of this. I got the dialogue from all the children, right? I'm over chatting with the mom about swim. But like, and there's somebody who's over the program that's kind of overseeing them. But then the boy passes Carter's jacket to another kid who pulls it into a baseball dugout and is going to guard said jacket. And so Carter, again, not the best choice, but he's in the right. He decides to take the stick and whack the kid so that he can get his jacket back because he doesn't want it to get dirty. And then the other boy, not the one that got whacked, but the other one that decided to steal the jacket and pass the jacket to the other child who got involved to guard the jacket, said, "Well, I was going to give it back." And I said, "Well, did you communicate that?" "Well, no." I
Mm.
said, and then the other kid goes, "Well, I didn't steal it." I said, "But weren't you guarding it? Like, didn't you get involved to guard the jacket?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, so you stole something." And I look around at the children, and I know that you get this, and anybody's in the homeschool community, everybody is in their religion in the homeschool community. So I said, "Okay, whether Jesus has told us that stealing is wrong, or Moses wrote it on the tablets, or we just know that there is right and wrong. We all agree that stealing is wrong, correct, children? Yeah, yeah. I said, okay. So then the guy that's overseeing them runs in and he's like, what happened? And I was like, okay, this is what happened. I said, talked to other kids. I said, believe me, if my child is abusing people with sticks, we're going to have a conversation. And I said, and my child is still trying to understand self defense, but I'm communicating with a group of children. There was also like another little girl in the corner that was like, I didn't get involved with it, but they totally stole his stuff. And then somebody was like, they stole my water bottle before. It's like, I was like, okay, like this is what's going on. But then the director of the school comes out, right? The co-op program. And she's like, well, stealing is wrong, but it's more wrong to hit somebody.
I disagree.
I totally disagree. So did the swim coach, or so did the other swimmer. She was like, "Arr!" She's like, they didn't get it. She goes, they punished them both equally, but then said that Carter was really in the wrong because he, retaliated with violence. But there was violence. And again, like my husband and I have been very clear. We're like, will you please just stop the stick battles? Like it doesn't end well, and nobody understands it. Like and really, I mean, somebody could, it's like the old, it could poke your eye out, like it's not a good, even if people are consenting or children are consenting, just like we talked about with Dominique Mushanu, they can't consent. They're children. They can't fully consent to what they're doing. These children didn't fully understand what they were consenting to, right? And the boy that guarded the thing was probably almost a foot taller than Carter and multiple years older. And so he's like, whining and crying about his arm. But it's like, dude, you chose to like guard the dugout, man. So, but again, I'm not here to say that like children need to fight with sticks, but it's the right from wrong. So it's a long-winded answer, but it was so perfect that came up last week because I was like, oh man, I can't wait to share this with Passio's people. And I was also really excited that there was one mom that got it.
Oh, good.
You know what I mean? Like I said, the other swimmer, she and I that had been like bantering about neurodivergence and swim and all the things all morning, she was like, see, exactly what I talked about. She's like, because her son has been kicked out of different programs, and he's on autism spectrum. And she's like, he doesn't understand. These things are not black and white and clear. And she goes, look, perfect example. And I was like, it is a perfect example because we're teaching one thing at home and we're trying to be clear to children who are still growing and developing, but it is confusing. It's like, well, I can do this in this one situation, but I can't do it in this situation. So yeah.
Well, I actually remember, I'm so glad you're bringing this up because we're talking about self-defense essentially, and we're
Right.
talking about the wrong is in the initiation. If there's an
Yes.
initiation of harm, that is violence. It's not violence to use force to defend. And, I recall a situation similar to yours where my son was being repeatedly scratched and hit by a kid at his preschool. And one day, my kid had had enough and he scratched back. And we got an incident report, and I played nice with the uh, faculty, but privately with my son, I said, I understand what you did. And
Totally.
the only way that that person was going to stop doing it is if you stood up for yourself.
Yep.
So it, I had to in a way, in a child's sort of vocabulary, I had to explain that we live in a slave system. We're being told by that slave system that it's wrong to that it's a greater wrong to hit back, and that's a lie. What you did was justified, and I have your back. And you have to be careful, because there's going to be adults that don't understand this because they've been programmed. Like, I just kind of had to just, because I don't want my son to lose that rebellious spirit. And so it's
Yes.
so important for us to have these conversations as parents with our kids, and for them to understand that there's going to be adults, quote unquote, authority figures that are going to look down on them for defending themselves,
Yes.
and understanding that dynamic too.
For
That
sure.
there's going to be spies at the adult level that are going to tell
Yes.
on you for defending yourself. And so
Yeah.
understanding that navigating that, because I think what your son did was right. And
Yeah.
I don't think, and that what my son did was
Yeah.
also right. And they shouldn't be shamed. That's a great learning opportunity. That's a lived experience that they can hold
Right.
and grow from. So I think it's great that you're, trying to navigate these spaces, these tough conversations. And, not all adults are going to understand. And we just have
No.
to,
No.
yeah, it sucks.
It's a tiny percentage, as everybody knows who's watching this, who is in this community. We know it's a tiny percentage. That's why I was like, you know, a friend, like, yay, like we're on the same page. And who knows, she may disappoint me like so many, and then be all into solipsism. But it happens. But it was a good moment. And the other thing I want to say, Jerry, is and you can, obviously, like, we can agree to disagree, but I don't know that it had to be repeated for your son. If they scratched him one time, that's violence, and he can defend himself. I'll tell you another little story. So, my husband played hockey, and we don't have an ice arena here, so that's part of what I try to do with Carter's Country Club is invite people to get involved so that we hopefully can have access to sports for everybody in every part of the world. Um, but he was doing this USA hockey course, and if you've done any USA sports, which I don't know, I sometimes feel like a really big hypocrite when I pay USA gymnastics. That's a whole other conversation. But he was doing this safe sport training. And if anybody's done safe sport, it's basically like an hour of subjecting yourself to conversations about grooming, supposedly so that you're watching for it. But one of the things that my husband was really frustrated with, okay, sorry, my dog is going to bark. Just figure out how to get him not to bark.
This is real life. It's
It's
okay.
real life, and he's a 14-year-old old man, and it's not right that we are rewarding his barking by giving him a treat, but he is a crotchety old Jack Russell, and he's not going to learn. He's going to keep, it's like the doggy dementia. He's like, could be the treat. I need the treat. Bark. Um, but anyway, so Justin's doing this course, and he's like fuming, right? And he's like, I got this answer wrong because they said it has to be repeated. So they gave a nasty example of a female coach patting a teenage girl on the bottom, like smacking her tail. Oh, I gotta go this way so you can see it. Smacking the tail, and saying good job after she gets out of her workout, rock hard. And Justin goes, and the question was like, is this harassment? Justin's like, absolutely. It's absolutely wrong. Like, no, why would you do that? He said, it's wrong. And the sexual implication of the rock hard makes it extra wrong. And doesn't matter whether she's, female, male, identifies in a different way. That's not the conversation. The conversation is the verbiage, the physical touch, the whole thing, the dynamic of power, all of it. Nope. USA hockey, but this is a course for all USA. So everybody and high school athletes, everybody has to take the same safe sport program. And I was like, Justin, we got to like go into safe sport and like record it and screen record, and you can show that and we can talk about it because that's what they're teaching. They're teaching that it has to be repeated. It doesn't have to be repeated. It's
Absolutely.
wrong.
Right.
And why are we going to let it repeat? I had this creeper next door years ago when I was still teaching adults, same space, right? The moms would come in here and I would train them and the kids would play and it was awesome. And this man next door didn't like what I was doing. He also had volunteered to take pictures of Carter when he was young, which is a total creeper. But then he started videoing the children and kids coming into our home. And again, this was many years ago. I would have dealt with it different now. But I contacted the dog order followers and said, what can we do? What can we do about this? And of course, the police did, and they, the same thing they always do. Well, nothing's happened. We can't really do it. I said, he's videoing children. Well, that's within his rights to do. And I was like, ah. So that's why it frustrates me because Carter has. Oh, Carter said something. What about military age males at the park? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. At cross country practice, there were all these dudes that were watching the kids cross country, videoing, all this other stuff. And I think the coach and the team had brought somebody in and same thing.
Makes me
So,
want to throw up.
well, that's why we have to take action and defend ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have to look at ourselves too. Like I said, okay, where are we consuming high performing child content? Where are we consuming child performers? And I always like to tell on myself, So Carter was competing in a ballet competition last week, and they don't live stream contemporary ballet, and my husband and I are very grateful for that because there were multiple little girls with no tights on, and their leotards were all up in their little girl business. And I was frustrated. I verbally to myself, to Justin, shamed the teachers and the parents. But Jerry, I didn't walk up and do anything. It's like I didn't even realize until I was like, why didn't I don't know what it would have done, but I did the wrong thing. I sat there and, I didn't go up and say, can somebody go protect that baby? Like, she either she doesn't know. In gymnastics, you like competitive gymnastics, they spray like glue, right? Or some kind of spray glue so their leotard doesn't go up their bottom. Um, but I was just appalled. I think I was also shocked because I like just couldn't, but again, I'm in the wrong. I should have done something. And I give you my word. I've given everybody my word now that I realize this. If that happens again, I'm walking right up and I'm saying, who's protecting this baby? This is not right. And one of the choreographer and dance teacher that I work with, she said, because we're like in kind of a rural community and we were kind of assuming, oh, this is a prestigious ballet competition, yada yada. So she was asking me all these questions and I said, like, she goes, when did they stop putting them in tights? And I said, I don't know. She said, was it just a few? And I said, no, it was like 85% of the girls not in tights and not shorts or a skirt. It was all just straight leotards. And one little girl, it's like I could do a demo. That's what my friend Lexi always says. Like, I'm like, I want to break out my headstand stool right here and spread my legs out and show you this little girl's in a headstand, crotch to the audience, and I'm like sitting there, I'm getting fuming, but it's again, I didn't know, I didn't do anything. I didn't know what to do, but and I was like, I don't, and I don't understand because it's like and I'm going to say something just really mean and nasty, but I don't really care anymore. Um, I don't know if these like fat dance moms just think their girls look so beautiful and they wish they looked that way that they don't know. I don't know if they're just clueless. I don't know if they think it's not a big deal. I mean, I think that most people are thinking, "Oh, that accidentally happened." But the people from Nashville Ballet that were supporting Carter saw the same thing and were off stage like, "What do we do?" And she said, she's like, did they not rehearse this in the leotard? Did they not know? Like, did it just happen by accident? Like they got the leotard in the mail and just went to the competition? I don't think so. You generally have a rehearsal. Carter rehearsed in his costume. Um, so I don't know, but like I said, I didn't, I'm just as complicit, you know.
So
Sorry. I'm like,
no, no,
ah.
no, I'm just holding and receiving what you're saying. And I think that the right action is to address what happened, to also to forgive yourself in part because, we all have different fight, flight, freeze responses to
Right,
things.
for sure.
And you are now conscious of it and you're going to make a different decision moving forward. And like, you know, going back to this idea of child performers and the over sexualization of children and just the creeps out there, it's like we and not repeating things, it's like um we do have to take a stand as soon as we see things, and forgiving ourselves for the times that we didn't take a stand initially, learning from those experiences and moving forward. I can go back in my own mind with my divorce, like, oh, I should have put my foot down earlier, then I wouldn't have had the child custody situation I'm in now. And it's like, well, but I'm able to speak more loudly because there's been an accumulation, whereas I was in fight, flight, freeze with the
Yeah.
repetition. And so it's all learning. It's all growth. It's all learning. It's all adjusting and getting stronger and doing better next time. And just, um, yeah, I'm just so saddened that the world of dance and gymnastics, and just in general movement, has been sexualized, especially for girls. I love dance. I love moving my body, and why does it have to be sexual, even for adults? Like, why can't we just enjoy music with our bodies? Like, why does it doesn't have to be a sexual thing, especially for children.
Well, and it doesn't have to be, the high performing element is also unhealthy. the
Mm,
the drive, the push. I didn't take Carter. I was very clear. Like, we are doing this as an experience. I want to see it. I'm not expecting you to come home with any. The goal, this is art. It's not a competition. I said, I just want you to showcase because you have your own idea. I want to showcase that. And I also wanted to have these kind of conversations because I wanted to see what was going on there. And I also wanted to talk about, I mean, Carter's solo was from, something he had designed from the Chronicles of Narnia. He's read all of those books, and he was, in his own way, embodying Mr. Tumnus, but he's also aware of the pagan god Pan that is being represented by Tumnus. So he was very clear that Tumnus is doing the wrong thing and then chooses to do the right thing. So he was doing his best as his 9-year-old self with the ballet skills that he has to tell that story. And Jerry, that they didn't pick up on any of that story. They were so focused on, like whatever with technique. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, good experience of like, this is not where we need to showcase art. And I knew that, but I was like, it was here. I wanted to let him have the kind of experience. Plus, he's got friends that were doing other things. But I'm glad I went. And what is coming to me right now as we're having this conversation, I can still write an email to the organization.
absolutely.
I can totally do that. I can also talk to the staff at Nashville Ballet that is very well respected with Youth America Grand Prix and say, is there something we can do? can we make, um, some kind of guidelines for these children. And then, that's what my husband Justin said. He goes, "Do you think they don't live stream contemporary because this is an issue?" Because in classical ballet, right, they're going to be wearing their tights, they're going to be wearing a tutu, whether that's a long romantic tutu or a short classical tutu, they're still wearing those things. Is that why? Or is it just bandwidth, right? That like we can't live stream, the whole thing. I don't know. But that's something that I can do. Um, and like I said, I will remember this consciously and do something else. But but yeah, but I do, yeah, like I said, I think it's also the physical training, because it could be the same with a child in track and field or any other thing, or chess, or some other type of competitive forum that they are, we're fascinated by the prodigy still, most of us.
Mm.
And is that being totally child led, or is, somebody else, because I think a lot of times we think about objectification as sexualization, and that is obviously a abhorrent, disgusting component. But the other type of objectification, or I'm blanking on the word, but exploitation of a child could happen the same, you know?
I think you bring up a really good point, and whether it's academics, movement, my parents pressured me with violin growing up.
Mm,
Like, there's just so much pressure that parents put on their kids sometimes. I'm sure you've seen this all in all kinds of ways in the dance world. And it's like, I remember growing up, my dad being like, yeah, basically, I want to live vicariously through you so I can brag about you at
yes,
church.
yes, yes,
And just
yes.
seeing myself as an object, while it wasn't a sexual object, it was the prodigy,
Right,
child object, and that's still objectification, like you said, and it's still not allowing the child to, like, if the child truly wants to
right,
develop a skill for themselves, like, my son wants to learn martial arts. All right, however long you feel called to do that, I will support you in that, and just finding a balance between, teaching them not to give up on things that they start,
right.
but also not pressuring them either, and just having it always be child led, I think is so important as parents. What do you think?
I do. And I love what you said right there about not giving up, because that is our thing. And myself as a coach, because I've seen it with Carter in all kinds of things, because he's had very much early access to all types of activities. He swam at a very high level as a very small child, all of those things. And I have told him that I don't care what he does, but he's got to learn discipline in some area. And we do need to work on it. And we had this really beautiful conversation last night, because he was being very disrespectful of his mandolin teacher, and he's had a hard time with like really acting squirrely, trying to get everybody to laugh. Carter's very much a showman. He wants to get everybody, to laugh. And but then I observed, and it was very easy, because I had made this video that I shared yesterday about this social dance that we're doing this weekend, because I want people to socialize off their phone. I want children to learn to socialize outside of Roblox. And so they were doing this line dance. And Carter was like singing, and he was like off the step, and he's doing all this stuff. And I was like, is he compensating because he doesn't
Mm.
know the movement? And and then I thought, wait a second. I said, and I asked, luckily, like his mandolin teacher, I've known since he was like a little boy, and I adore him so much. He's a grown man now, but like he's a couple years younger than me, so it's like one of those, I still see him as like a little dude. But I was like, wait a second. Jordan brought out the piece of paper. Jordan was writing notes and tablature. Carter has dyslexia. Did Carter act up because he didn't want Jordan knows, right, that Carter is neurodivergent and we're working on these things. But so I said, Carter, were you acting up because it was hard? Did you act up? And again, I'm trying not to lead. I'm trying to ask, like, but I could see it. I had watched the day before how he behaved when he didn't know the choreography. And the choreography is hard, like the tush push, which is like a line dance. It's a little intricate. And I told the kids, I said it took me a little bit to learn this. I'm not very quick at picking up choreography personally. And so it always takes me a long time. And so I was like, "Oh, is he compensating?" So we got to have that conversation. It was really beautiful. And now I know. And I said, "Can you go and communicate that with Jordan that you're sorry you were being disrespectful because you were. He was doing his best to teach and impart, but can you tell him why?" And now I know. And he said, "Well, I do that a lot with things when they're really hard." I said, "Okay." So I don't want him to shy away from doing hard things, but I said, you can ask questions. You can slow it down. You can get clarification. And I said, and I can help you. I wish he was less resistant to working with me, Jerry. Like I think people think that about us, like homeschool, unschool parents, that they think that like the children just, oh no, my child wouldn't listen to me. I'm like, no, my child doesn't want to listen to me either. Like it's hard. It's not like, my child is listening to me intently. No, he fights me and questions me on most everything, as I think he should.
Right.
But I did say, will you let me help you? Like, I can help you. I said, at some point, you're going to pass me up. But at this point, like he was squirrely with his ballet teacher teaching this pas de bourrée. And I'm sitting there going, backside, front, backside, front. And I said, dude, there's a lot I can't do, but I can do that. And I can help you with that if you'll let me, you know, or you can keep fighting me on it. But yeah, so yeah,
Well, I know we're coming up on
I
our time, but
know, I know.
I think this was a really great conversation. And just touching briefly on what that you just shared, whether you're a mandolin teacher or a homeschooling teacher, it's always about finding the modality that's going to work with that child or student. And so, okay, if a child maybe has dyslexia or is having difficulty understanding tablature, let's but they're able to memorize movements. Let's
Right,
have them memorize
right,
the fingering along the
right.
tabs. I mean, there's plenty of amazing, guitar virtuosos that can't sight read.
Right. And he knows that. Jordan definitely knows that, and he talked about it. He said, "Well, I'm wondering if we should just try the rhythm, like just being the
Right.
rhythm, because the mandolin really is a rhythm instrument." And I was like, "Yeah, but at the same time, I think also we've got to learn to do the hard thing, and it is going to be hard. Just because it's hard doesn't mean that we're going to give up on being able to read at a quality level." It may take longer, but it was good. I'm grateful for that, and to observe and to be like, oh, because how many people don't catch that, right? Like, and you're going to spend your life being the goofy fun one to compensate for the fact that that thing is hard, you know so all the things. All right,
Um,
I am so grateful. I'm so sorry if I just like talked and hijacked everything, but
The
you know
I'm basically trying to build visibility for people. We're all in the One Great Work together. I'm so glad that you have your YouTube, your Odyssey, your Telegram channel, that
And I
you're
will have a website. That's why I'm taking the course again, because that's the part that I was so far behind that I didn't feel that I could do it myself. And I do want to do it myself. I know I can pay somebody, but I feel like I can, like Carter. I can do the hard things. It's just, it may take me a little bit longer. So, all right. Well, I'm sending you lots of love. I'm really grateful that you're here. We'll keep chatting, and I'm going to go chat with Hondo and Jake.
all right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah. Take care.